Welcome to the Be Empowered podcast with your host, Graham Hopkins. My goal is to help you regain your power by bridging the gap between who you think you are right now and who you really are. In simple language, that is like making your childhood dreams come true. This is for those who want to make an impact in their lives but don't know how to get there. Be ensured, when you know and feel connected to your spiritual mind, you master your world.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining the Be Empowered show. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Natasha Mog-Addis. Natasha, for a start, how did you get that name?
It's easily explained. Mog is my maiden name. So I grew up, and actually until I first married at 25 years of age, I was Moggy most of my life. And it was only when I got married at 25 that I became Natasha. So I was very used to being called Moggy for many, many years. And Addis is my new married name because I divorced and remarried. And for many years I kept my first married name because my children were very young, and it just made sense to keep the married name because that was their surname. But actually 2 years ago I decided to go back to the maiden name and add my new married name because it was more reflective of, you know, current life, and the boys have grown up and everyone's very comfortable with the name change.
Okay, so just to fill the audience in, Natasha and I met probably 2 years ago at a conference in California at Santa Clara, and that was a coaching program that we both enrolled in called High Performance. So we'll talk a bit about that in a minute. But first of all, just as a means of introduction, Natasha's a very talented lady. I call her Superwoman because she's got so many balls up in the air at any one time. And you're got to make an appointment about a month ahead to even have a chat on Skype with Natasha. I've just found out that she has a son who is Superman, Clark. So she has a son called Clark, would you believe it?
Yeah.
And Natasha has her own business in London. It's called NM Consulting. And do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Natasha?
Well, it started with me kind of coming out of big corporate jobs about 6 years ago, and it very much kind of evolved around the things that really drew me and kind of resonated with me to study. I decided to take some time out and actually just kind of go with the flow. I should point out at this time that I had for many years this kind of how can I say it, a kind of in the background, this purpose to have my own business. It was always something that I was really attracted to doing. But I guess, you know, as for many people, the golden handcuffs of a well-paid corporate job, a career that I had built, a very young family. I went through a divorce and was the sole breadwinner for, you know, a few years. Had me kind of focus on the career and keeping the job and whatever. And all that said, I loved my job. I had the job of my dreams. So I can't, you know, in no way, I'm so grateful for that and all the experience and knowledge that brought. But really, I felt that there was something kind of burning inside of me that was yearning now to come out. And the time, I don't know that the time is ever right, but it certainly felt like I could take that time to do something about it. And I guess the nail in the coffin, if you like, was that I developed shingles, which was very much given to stress and to my immune system being, you know, completely shattered, and it was a time of, you know, great inward reflection. So yeah, there was lots of things going on, but I basically decided that at some point during the course of that year that I would set up and work for myself. And I went back to some study, and basically several things came up really, but psychology came up in a big way, you know, the study of people's mindset and behaviour was always something that from being a tiny little girl I used to love. Being around a lot of adults. As a single child, it was something that I was exposed to a lot growing up. And I was lucky that I was always put in situations where, you know, I was allowed to kind of be in those situations, and people watching was one of my biggest hobbies. So psychology came up, and I actually happened upon NLP, and that was something that I'm so pleased to come across. And for me, I guess my insight is that in myself is that I do run my own life at a very purposefully high standard. And I think a lot of my stress in my jobs and so on came from more the fact that although I was already performing at a very high standard, I wasn't firing in a sustainable way on all the cylinders I really needed in order to keep raising the bar, if you like. So although I was at a high standard and at high performance, I think that's where the realization that some of those bars weren't entirely at their peak is where I developed the shingles, and my body was actually then saying at that point, you know, yeah, you can perform at a high level in that way, but there is a limit to how far your body can allow you to, you know, to maintain that kind of activity. So I studied NLP. I studied with one of the masters himself, the co-creator, Dr. Richard Bandler, and an amazing co-trainer that works with Richard completely, which is John Laval and his wife Kathleen, who are absolutely fabulous masters of NLP. And I just what I learned with them was just absolutely phenomenal. And it was like light switches kind of going, you know, all of a sudden things that I had felt and I intuitively knew or did actually now had a structure and a name, and they had been qualified, if you like, as a structure and a process that you can follow. And I also studied, as part of the NLP, a huge part on my courses of practitioner and master practitioner was very much delving into the world of hypnosis and actually understanding how the brain works, essentially, is the neuro piece of NLP. But the thing that I absolutely loved the most of NLP was actually the linguistics and the reprogramming, which is all about, you know, the perspective that you give the brain to see things through, and how we actually think becomes our behaviour, and how our behaviour is articulated by our language. And that for me was the absolute kind of foundation of absolutely everything I've gone on to do.
Natasha, can I just, because some of the viewers are not going to know what NLP is. Can you explain what it is, and also can you take a step of demystifying hypnosis, because I know there's an awful lot of people out there that are pretty scared about that type of thing too.
Yeah, great questions, because it's very easy to assume that everybody knows what's widely out there, but if you've not come across it before. So NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and the three areas of those, the three words, are kind of the clues to what the study is about. Essentially, it's psychology. It's about how people work, how we operate within our bodies, but very much driven about our brain function and our mind function, and how mind and body are completely connected, and that either you learn about how your feelings and your sensory kind of mode is working and apply new and sort of more purposeful thinking, or you start with how you're thinking and actually see how the result of that manifests itself in your behaviours and the changes in the behaviours that you can make. So I would say very, very quickly then, so neuro is the piece about, how our brain works. So it's really looking and understanding the function of the brain. The linguistic is all about, as I mentioned just a moment ago, it's about how language and how we learn our language, and then how we use our language to articulate either internally, because we all talk to ourselves and we have that kind of inner voice, which in NLP is called digital, by the way, and how we talk to ourselves, but also then how we articulate on the outside when we're engaging with others. And then the programming piece is actually how, by knowing more about how the brain works and using language particularly, and this is where the hypnosis comes in, is that we can reprogram actually at a very deep level, but even on the slightest of levels with, viewers who perhaps haven't come across NLP before and only know hypnosis from stage hypnosis, which is all about entertainment with this. Hypnosis is something that I also, in my own experience, when I realised I hadn't actually cottoned on when I signed up for the courses that we would do so much around hypnosis, and I was kind of not sceptical, but a little bit afraid, if I'm honest, of what that meant and what I'd signed up for, until I realised that actually hypnosis is about relaxing. And hypnosis is a word that's given to on a mainstream point of view, more so this kind of entertainment on stage kind of context, which, to some can seem very scary, because people get up and they eat onions like they were apples, and, they'll do silly things. But the basis is that when we're under any sort of level of trance or deep relaxation, whatever words, people are comfortable with, they are all the same things. And I put meditation in there as well, because that's a level of self-trance or self-deep relaxation. So for me, there's lots of words that mean the same thing to me. But we learn about being able to induce that level of trance with others, and the powerful shifts that people can make based on their desired outcome. And that's the key, is that, none of this is actually going out and intentionally trying to put people into trance. This is about actually working with people when they come to you and you use hypnosis as a tool. It's about doing something purposeful and with good intention, and that's very powerful in allowing a shift to take place in what can be an obstacle in somebody's life, and that they are desperate to have that change. And a great example of that is phobias. People are sometimes very trapped in their own life and their own lifestyle by phobias and deep levels of fear that they have to certain things. And, I've worked with, I was very lucky that I was invited to work as an assistant at one of the trainings here in London with Dr. Bandler, John Laval, and his wife Kathleen. And Phobia Day, as it's called, is the most empowering of days to watch people, and I've been one of them. I'll give you a quick story in a moment, but to see the empowerment that comes of actually being able to shift and reprogram the brain around what was a very debilitating phobia. And, at these events, great big, long, huge snakes are brought in, and tarantulas, and the fear of heights. We use the building to actually test that, the phobia has left, and so on, and people are taken to the roof of the building and so on. So it's a very empowering, non-scary, absolutely self-induced, because you cannot go to a level of relaxed trance meditative state without wanting to. And I think that was the thing for me, that I realized that until I gave myself permission to relax and to let go and to trust the situation I was in with very, very experienced people, that I was never actually going to experience what it felt like and what the power of that brings to you as an individual.
So some people think that when you're hypnotised that you don't have a free will, but I don't think that's true at all, is it?
It's not at all. And in fact, going back to the two things to clarify, people in the main, when you've not been, and I speak from my own experience really, when you've not been exposed to anything but the stage hypnosis, your understanding is that, these people on stage, they look like they've lost the freedom of their own choice and their own free will, and that they're doing things against what they would normally do. But actually, the journey before they actually get on stage is that, the hypnotist is, if he is looking for true volunteers in the audience, they will calibrate the audience. So what I mean by that is that they are watching the people in the audience to watch their physical and their mental kind of shift with what they're doing pre-picking volunteers. And they only pick people who are already what's called suggestible, and by what that means is really that they're people that are going with the flow. They're happy to go with the flow and they trust the process. And the hypnotist can see that in their body language and their relaxed state, and that actually they are responding to things that they're doing already before they get on stage. So nobody does anything around the word hypnosis without real, true acceptance and permission already given by your unconscious. You know what you're doing. And even people in the deepest levels of trance, should the fire alarm go off, or there be a situation where their life is, at risk, they would wake up in that moment. So, it is completely given by your own permission that you allow yourself to reach lower and lower levels of trance. So,
the way I see it, and I don't know if this is correct, but to me it's like the conscious mind is shutting down, especially the left part of the brain, and really what you're seeing, like the stage hypnosis, you're seeing that the subconscious mind is just playing itself out.
Exactly that. You start to speak more to the unconscious. So you're completely, knowing that the unconscious runs, a much huger capacity of our being and our doing, if you like. You can trust enormously in your unconscious taking control, because actually that's what it's doing all the time anyway. It's what runs our heartbeat and our breathing and our body temperature, and everything is run by our unconscious. So actually, like you say, giving the conscious level of the brain a bit of a holiday and parking it for a while and seeing what the real default mechanism in our brain wants to do with ourselves is hugely empowering.
Yeah. So, Natasha, I could talk all day about this because it really fascinates me, and how the brain works fascinates me. But this show is about being empowered. So what I want to where I want to go now is, how has this empowered you? Another question I'd like to ask you: have you got over the shingles? As you progressed on this journey, have you become empowered enough in your body to overcome that dysfunction?
Yeah, I have. It took several years, if I'm really honest, and lots of different angles that I've come at to help my body and my immune system to kind of rebuild. And I think it works on many various levels. But one that I would just touch on today is that, nutrition and my food, the diet, what I eat and what I put into my body has been a massive transition for me. And some I've done real cold turkey on, and others I did in a slower kind of process of, leaving the old world of food behind and moving into the new world. 3 years ago, I decided, having read lots of books about nutrition, I was having lots of issues with my digestion, and I was very tired. My sleep patterns were very, very disrupted. I didn't sleep well. I used to wake up several times a night, which, when we all know that sleep is so important for our immune system to rebuild when we're sleeping, to then have a disrupted sleep pattern is kind of double whammy, and your body's just being depleted at every level. So I could see, or I could feel that my body was saying, you need to do something different. And I did a lot of reading and a lot of research, and basically took things into my own hands and thought, look, I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to try doing some things that, at top level are out there. And then from there, I've really kind of progressed. Because I found that instantly I started to feel so much better in baby steps, that it was my motivation to actually keep going and doing something else. So I started by taking out tea and coffee, for instance, 3 years ago. And as a result of taking coffee out, yes, I had a huge headache 3 days later, which lasted a couple of days and then disappeared. But actually taking coffee out meant that it was quite easy to take dairy out of my diet, because I used to drink great big frothy lattes, and I'd probably have 2 or 3 a day, which was quite a lot of milk content. And apart from the fact that I loved French cheeses, the milk in the coffee, I just stopped buying the cheeses, by the way. So if they weren't there, I couldn't eat them. And then I've gone on to absolutely now I'm dairy-free, gluten-free, wheat-free. I've never been a huge sugar intaker, but I'm very conscious of sugar intake, and it's a very low level. And I don't drink very much alcohol anymore, and that's something else that, I probably did quite a lot of a few years ago.
So I saw a post on Facebook recently where you overcame a long-term allergy problem. What was that about?
Yeah. That's with a very good friend of mine and a fabulous lady called Jackie, who basically does a hay fever cure here in the UK, Jackie Taylor. And she can be found at Outstanding Hives, by the way, on the internet. She has a web page. She, a whole life. And I can't say how, I can't even put it on a scale of 1 to 10 even. As a child and as a teenager and taking my exams, I remember taking my exams through the summer months and being completely drugged up with antihistamine tablets, which, in the 70s and 80s, which is when I was doing all of that, were very drowsy antihistamines. They're not like the ones you can take in these days. But I just remember having streaming eyes, really itchy streaming eyes, almost like an asthma kind of effect of hay fever, sneezing continuously, headaches from just sneezing all day. And just completely exhausted, under threat, really, is how I now, in retrospect, can see how my body was feeling all the time. And it was, because internally it thought it was under threat. So I met Jackie, funnily enough, as an acquaintance. It was a friend of a friend of somebody that we both met at the High Performance Certification Program. And I can't be more grateful for meeting her. We've become really great friends, and she's now not only performed the hay fever cure on myself, but also my 3 children. And we went through it about 2 months ago. And actually, from the time that I had the session with her, which is a blend of kinesiology, which is kind of natural healing process and understanding through muscle testing and so on, to some hypnosis as well, and a kind of a blend of all of those processes, has left me completely cured of hay fever. And since having it done 2 or 3 months ago now, I can safely say my husband cuts the grass in our lawn. There is no reaction whatsoever. I drive with the windows open in my car, which, you know, if you'd known me before then, I could never have done. I always had to have the filter button on the car to recycle the air inside the actual vehicle. It's phenomenal. I have no longer got, and the hypnosis piece is a big piece of the hay fever cure, and it is a reprogramming of how my body reacts to histamine.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Be Empowered podcast. For more on regaining your power by bridging that gap between who you think you are right now and who you really are, go to www.beempoweredgroup.com and enter your name and email address to receive a free ebook and get notified of any upcoming podcasts. Remember, when you know and feel connected to your spiritual mind, you master your world. Changing your energy transforms your life.